Now, Palestinians have been fleeing Gaza's second city, Khan Younis, after the Israeli military ordered evacuations of part of the city in the south again. A ground operation has already taken place there, and people expressed their anger over being displaced once more.
They announced that we should evacuate out of the eastern parts of Khan Younis. Where should we go? Tell us where to go. When we were displaced from Rafah, we had to spend 2 weeks out in the open.
We seek peace, not war. Enough is enough. We are slowly dying. This is unfair. What is our fault? We are innocent civilians.
It comes as Kogat, the arm of the Israeli army responsible for logistical coordination, issued a clarification after the European hospital near Khan Younis was evacuated too. They said the call to move towards the Al-Mawasi humanitarian zone does not apply to the patients in the European hospital or the medical staff working there. However, on the ground, evacuations had already taken place. Dr. Mohammed Tahir is a British surgeon who's been operating at the European hospital near Khan Younis. He works with Fajr Scientific, a group of medical professionals. He says he was ordered to leave.
I'd been at Al-Nasser medical complex where I was lecturing our medical students. I returned to the European hospital to start my operating, and then we got the news that the hospital was being evacuated. Of course, I found that to be very strange because I always assumed the European hospital would be one of the safe havens in Gaza. And yet the news was confirmed to us that it was actually in the red zone and had been deemed unsafe. Our team mission and our leaders asked us to leave, and we've been hosted by a very generous NGO by the name of Cadus right now. But prior to leaving, of course, we witnessed all the injured of varying severities forced to stay in the hospital, and all the persons and families that camped in the hospital were evacuating. The state of panic and the extent of the fear was extremely palpable. Some people have nowhere to go. Some people have nowhere safe to be.
I asked our Middle East correspondent Sebastian Usher what we know about the current situation in the hospital.
Well, I mean, it's been a slightly confused situation, as you were saying. The Israeli army says that it didn't issue a specific evacuation order for the hospital, but I think the medical staff and patients, people there, seeing what has happened elsewhere during the 9 months of the Israeli offensive against Hamas in Gaza, what's happened in other hospitals, felt that the safest thing was to evacuate. And the health ministry in Gaza, run by Hamas, did issue, it says, an evacuation order for people to leave. Some of the patients have been taken to Nasser Hospital, others have found shelter elsewhere. As you know, we are not reporting directly on the ground. We're receiving information from our freelance journalists in Gaza. We don't know exactly the situation in the hospital at the moment, how many people are still left there, but it hasn't come under any attack as far as we know. The Israeli army issued a statement an hour or two ago saying that it did carry out overnight strikes on some of these areas, towns and villages to the east of Khan Younis, where they issued the evacuation order on Monday evening, first of all in an audio message and then online. And people did start to leave then, and then when these strikes began to happen, more people started to flee their homes. Now remember, Khan Younis is a second city in Gaza. It's a place that we saw images of after the Israeli troops pulled out a month or two ago, when people began to return home, of total devastation. People described trying to find their homes, that they could no longer recognize the streets where they were. But despite all that, many people did return as they were fleeing the latest subsequent offensive against Hamas by Israel down in Rafah, where many people have then fled to. So what we've been hearing, and as what we were hearing there in the interview you had with someone from the area, is that people are once again on the move. Some people who've been displaced already, maybe 5 or 6 times.
Sebastian Usher there, and in the last few minutes we've heard from the United Nations that they say 250,000 people in southern Gaza have been affected by Israel's new evacuation order. So 250,000 people affected by that evacuation order, according to the UN.